That's okay. If we're not wearing coats, I'm taking mine off.
So there's 2 forms missing, but I haven't got any back.
Okay, well, I'll tell them. I don't see any scouts, guys. Yeah. Maybe I can, maybe you can help me formulate some talking points. When I'm on again, I can hit it specifically. We kind of got hit with a lot of calls today, so.
I almost called in today just to get you on what they were throwing.
I know. It's all good. Greg, will you lead us in the pledge today? Should we start? Oh, it's 4:59. What do you know? Huh? I know. We're all here.
Jimmy's early.
Hey, if nobody's, Greg, you feel like taking your coat off? You don't have to. Oh, you have your coat on, so, all right, we'll leave ours on.
I got this one out already.
All right, should we do it? Oh, there's Luigi right there. I'm good. Okay, welcome to our city council meeting. Glad to have you here today. We're going to start with an invocation by Luigi Persichetti. I don't have my glasses on. I guess I need to. Okay, Persichetti. I like it, Luigi. Thank you. He will offer an invocation. Thank you for representing the Unity Church and the St. George area Interfaith Council. We appreciate you being here every time. And then afterwards, Councilman Greg MacArthur will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Luigi?
It's always a pleasure and an honor for us from the Interfaith Council to be here to offer prayer for our city and for all of us citizens who participate in the well-being and the good management of our city. And so I'm going to ring the Tibetan bells to start us in prayer, and if you like to fold your hands or however you like to pray, you can start there. So let us offer a prayer in gratitude for the beginning of this year and for all the service that our Mayor John Pike and his council members have done for us, and for the good governance that they continue to do, making our city a well-run, smooth, and enjoyable and happy place to live. Just allow yourselves to appreciate the goodness and the beauty of our city, and also the well-being and kindness and love that we express for one another, which is also expressed in our Interfaith Council that accepts everyone in whatever faith that they're in and whatever way that they wish to express that faith. And so we give thanks for our mayor, for our councilmen, and for our city. Amen.
Thank you, Luigi. Greg?
Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance along with me.
Thank you. Thank you again, Luigi, for being here. You know, when I was a kid, I couldn't say spaghetti, so I said Peschetti. So I should be able to remember Perschetti, right? Persichetti. I'll work on it. All right. Just want to mention before we get started with the agenda, there was initially to be on this meeting agenda an issue at Sun River and regarding a zone amendment that will not be heard. That item was pulled from the agenda at the request of the applicant. It is possible it could be on a future agenda. It is not possible for it to be heard tonight, however. So I just want you to know that. That will not happen tonight. And if it is brought back at another time and hasn't had significant changes to the issue, then it could be brought back, soon, but it would be advertised as required by law. So I just want to make that point so that any of you that are from Sun River, I expect there might be a few because I see your name tags and I know some of your faces. I just want you to know we will make sure that that is all done according to the state law and our policy. Fair enough, Adam and Sean, have I stated that correctly?
Absolutely. In fact, I would add that we had the opportunity to meet with a number of residents who came representing you, and one of them at least is on the Board of Trustees, and they gave a great suggestion that we liked about how we can better communicate with all of the residents. That's been a challenge in the past. We've attempted some different things, and I don't know that they have worked as well as we've wanted them to be able to get the word out. And so the group of residents that we met with today, they gave us a great suggestion. Now I think we have a reliable way to be able to get information to the board that they've then represented that they have the ability to email all of you somehow. That part of it is magic to me. I don't know how that part's going to work, but they've assured us that they have your contact information. They can get that information to you. And so there we go, right there. And so,
good.
Yeah, I thought it was good, and I hope that will maybe close the gap as far as communication. So I think that'll be a good thing.
Thank you very much. And of course, like all of our meetings, these are open to the public. You're welcome to stay. Usually it's a party. Well, okay. We have a weird definition of party, but you are absolutely welcome to stay and come to every meeting just to make sure. But we typically meet, we have a full council meeting like this, what we call a regular meeting on the first and third Thursdays, usually, and the second and fourth Thursdays are usually work meetings. That's not always the case, but anytime we have any one of those meetings, they are advertised as such. And they're all open meetings. So I just want to make that mention. And the regular meetings are always at 5, and when they're advertised, it always says when they start. The work meetings are usually at 4. So anyway, we will try to be as communicative as we can in sharing information, just to make sure that not just Sun River, but all residents feel like there's open communication and transparency in everything we're doing. So thank you, and thank you for your interest.
Mayor, would now be a good time to discuss comments
Yes.
from the public with that item number 1,
Yes.
as far as what would be appropriate?
Yes,
and-
for example, we have on the first Thursday, typically meeting of the month, we have comments from the public. If there are any that wanted to speak today on this particular Sun River issue, that wouldn't be appropriate at this time because it is likely that it could be on a future agenda. And that's kind of one of our rules. And that's to be fair to the applicant so that they can be here to answer any questions or respond similarly. So that's why it's one of our rules for taking the comments from the public on the first Thursday. So we wouldn't do that, but were there any other comments that were not on the Sun River topic or another topic that's on our agenda tonight?
Mayor,
Okay.
I would also add that we did have some calls, emails about another item that was originally scheduled to be heard tonight, a mining and grazing amendment. That item also has been withdrawn. It will not be heard tonight. So if anybody was here for
And
that item.
Thank you. And just to clarify, is that issue withdrawn? Is that application withdrawn, or was it just withdrawn from this meeting?
John, what was the request from the applicant?
So we will, it would not be without a new application, it would not be.
It's withdrawn, and so they'd have to resubmit a new application. So that current
Okay.
application is now withdrawn, and so they'd have to go through the process from the beginning if they wanted to do, the same thing they requested.
Very good. That's good to know. And that's different from the Sun River issue. I just want to be clear. That one has not been withdrawn, but only asked to be withdrawn from this meeting agenda. Just want to be completely straightforward with you. With that, Adam, I believe there was maybe one other change to the
One
agenda?
other change. Item number 4 has also been removed from the agenda at the request of the applicant. John, would we expect that that one might come to council at a future meeting? Okay. Other than that, Mayor and Council, no other changes to the agenda.
Adam, then let's go to item number 2.
Okay, the consent calendar, these are items that are administrative in nature. We've reviewed these with staff. We found them to comply with all of our regulations. Staff would recommend approval of all 5 items as presented. If you'd like to pull any of these off for individual discussion, we can do that. Otherwise, we would recommend approval of the entire consent calendar.
Council, do you have any concerns about these items? I might just mention I'm actually quite excited about the Flood Control Authority one that is A. That's something where, Jimmy knows about this, but we're part of that Flood Control Authority, and we get matching funds that our citizens have contributed to that help us do these projects that help with our floodways. Really important, and this is one I'm excited to get done down at the Fort Pierce Wash. So, but you also see there are a couple of others like the lease agreement, the 2 lease agreements that will be for our relocation for the next year and a half with the remodeling and expansion of City Hall. But if you don't want to pull any of those out, I'd entertain a motion to approve the items as presented on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion? And seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Adam and staff, for preparing those. Number 3.
Item number 3 is a sponsorship request from Arts Inc. for St. George Street Fest, and Emily's going to take us through this request.
Good evening. So this series is 10 events that begin at 6 o'clock on the first Friday of every month from March through December. It'll be held downtown on Tabernacle Street with a beer garden located inside the Green Gate Village. In addition to Tabernacle Street, 2 of the 10 events may also close Main Street between approximately 79 North and Tabernacle. It wouldn't interfere with the new hotel there on the boulevard. They're requesting fee waivers as they have in years past, and new from last year, the 2020 sponsorship request includes use of the city's mobile stage, placement of no parking signs a day earlier on Thursdays, a request for an additional 50 amp power connection and spider box for the vendors, and an increase from $1,000 to $2,000 per month to help defray the organizers' costs for producing the event on those 10 occasions. The city's Special Events Committee has reviewed the application and recommends approval of the event with the condition that vendors use their own generators in lieu of the city providing additional power. And Ed Tracy from Arts Inc., that has a DBA St. George Street Fest, is here to share an overview of the event and answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Tracy, how are you?
Good evening, sir.
Good to
How are
see you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You're not here to tear up any speeches, are you?
I am not going to touch anything.
Tore up my speech yesterday. Just kind of in fun, but
Tongue in cheek.
yeah,
It cut,
Thanks.
the, it cut the speech by an hour.
I know
So,
it's
yeah.
true. Maybe you should have torn a little more. Thanks for being here, Ed.
My pleasure. So, as you know, last year I took over Street Fest. It was a great year. We upped our numbers. We had a lot more visitors. We added some different events. We took away some different things that we were doing. All in all, we feel it was very successful. It has grown considerably. We've added more vendors this year. It costs a little bit more to run it. I don't take any funds I'm not paid to do it. I'm strictly a volunteer and do so willingly. But there are some costs involved, and so we've asked for a little bit more money. And at the advice of the Tourism Board or Greater Zion, they've asked us to bring the bigger stage in and bring some bigger acts in the hopes of bringing in more tourists. And so that's what we've done. We think it's an exciting event, and I'm looking forward to this year. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
Does
Ed's,
Greater
yeah,
Zion contribute any money toward this?
They will.
that's kind of what they're committing to if you do these things.
And I think the challenge last year, so I just kind of took over last minute last year. It was kind of a shoot from the hip from the beginning. Looking back on it, their suggestion is to somehow gauge where the people are coming from. We really didn't do that last year. And with things like the beer and wine garden and people using their credit cards, we know that there are certain ways that we can do that. And so our plan is to track that, and because we can't really get tourism dollars without effectively knowing where people are coming from. So that's the plan this year. So later in the year, we will apply for funding. We did this year, but those were the suggestions from Greater Zion. So
We've been
Jimmy?
we've been trying to make sure we help make this event successful.
Yes,
And
sir.
so thank you for taking that on.
My pleasure.
Or maybe Emily can help me a little bit just to make sure I understand the difference from what we've done before and now. Besides waiving the fees, then we're being asked for a donation as well of additional, besides what we were doing last year. What were we doing last year?
We were doing $1,000 a month last year.
Okay, so we're increasing that by another $1,000? So $2,000 is the request. What about the stage?
We didn't use the city's mobile stage last year.
We have done before,
yes,
but
so
not this past
it
year.
used to be Main Street and Tabernacle. It was very spread out, and there was a lot of empty space. So I took it last year, put it right on Tabernacle, with the exception of a classic car show, which we did last year. Got 120 classic cars, hugely attended. And then Ironman uses a portion of Main Street, and when they do that, we have some of our booths that go onto Main Street.
So when with that stage, it takes our staff to set it up, and so there's some additional costs there? Okay, I just want to be clear on I'm not saying I'm against that, I just want to be clear on the total amount that we're...
This
You
last
know.
year, we used a little stage in Green Gate Village, and we brought in smaller bands and that sort of thing, and it was well attended. We just want to bring in some bigger acts, and to do that, we need that stage.
So would that be at each event, the big stage?
Yes, sir.
At 7 of the 10.
7 of the 10, right?
Okay.
So for the 5K, the Fire Hose Frenzy, it's used by the city, Ironman, and then one other one, 4th of July, right? So then we just...
So what else additional from last year, Emily? Can you, besides the stage, the extra money for sponsorship?
Just assistance with parking, no parking signs to try to get the cars moved and have more notice.
With City View opening, there are a lot of cars on Tabernacle. Before City View was built, it was always an issue getting those folks to move their cars the day of or day before. And so if there's any way, and I'm happy to go out and put flyers out on cars, whatever it takes, I just want to make sure that it's okay before I do that.
Has there been any communication with PEG Development on,
Oh, yes, I am in communication with the leasing agents and the office staff there to let them know that this event, they put it in their newsletter, so that the tenants are aware of it. We just need to gently remind them to move their cars.
okay.
The only other new item this year is the power, asking for additional power for more vendors.
So with the addition of some of the food trucks, last year Dennis Jorgensen had added in one of the existing Spider Box, a 50 amp plug. Had taken one of the 110s and turned it into a 50 amp. I need one more so that I can keep the food trucks from fighting.
So it's something that we know is doable, just,
It is doable.
How big of a deal of that, or is that for us to add? Do we know, Emily?
Lori?
Yeah, is Lori back there? There's
Yeah.
Lori. Is that something, come on up.
It is a big deal. You know, the 50 amp connections they have, it's like a large RV connection, besides the energy that draws. It's hard on all those street lights. Those are all on those strands of street lights where you just hook them in. Now, little 110 plugs, they're not so bad. We originally did that, not for this event, but we did those 50 amp plugs for the events that the recreation department put on with the stages and the music and the lights. But to add more, we have to string more wire, and then those boxes, we made them in-house. And I don't know if they're really something that we should be using out for the public to use for a food truck. You know, that was my concern, is the liability on the food trucks.
We've been using them for several years, though. So we probably ought to,
Yeah, we built those spiders about 4 years ago.
right.
For the recreation department, yeah.
What,
So they cost about $1,000 a piece made. And to provide them with the energy, it's about $50 a day for 15.
Okay.
We could pass that on to the vendors if that helps. Just charge them, pass that to you.
what's the alternative? If that extra 50 is not there, does the food truck use a generator or?
Yes, and that's kind of why we're trying to do this, because what happens is they bring their generators and they're loud. We ask them to bring, generators aren't cheap, and they already have their generators, and depending on which truck it is, they're pretty loud, so. But if we can't do it, we can't do it.
Just maybe moving aside a little bit to another issue. Have you had a chance, Ed, you or your fellow volunteers, to talk to some of the other downtown merchants? How are those relationships going? That's the reason we started this,
Right.
was to help bring people downtown. What would you say about that?
Last year, I made a point of going to each and every one of the businesses from St. George Boulevard and on the boulevard down along Tabernacle, Capoletti's, all those spaces there, to let them know some of the changes. If they were interested in having a booth, we'd offer them a free booth so that they could come down and have the opportunity to showcase their wares. We did a little passport. What we did was we had the logos of all the stores down on those streets. People had to go into their stores to get them signed off, and then we entered them in a drawing. So we made every effort, as I will this year, to make sure that people frequent those businesses. I will say, more particularly Arts to Zion and those folks in like 35 Main, they said it was really the first year that they can ever attribute any business as a result of Street Fest. People were actually going in and frequenting their businesses. So that made me feel good.
Good. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think now, there are challenges that come with having the apartments down there, but there are also good things that
Oh,
come,
absolutely.
because there's people that hopefully will, again, live, work, and play downtown, and this is one of the times they get to play. So anyway, I hope that can be something that can be enjoyed. Council, any thoughts, suggestions? You have the ability to, modify some of these if you would like, or approve it the way it is, whatever you'd like to do. But I do think, at least I feel, there have been some great things, great strides last year made. It wasn't as big, but some of that was good, I think. There's been a little bit of scaling back, and I think trying to solve some of the issues that we had maybe in previous years. Our police have had a chance, I think, to weigh in on this a little bit. And I don't know, Chief, do you feel comfortable in speaking, saying any thoughts about how it's been this past year, and if you're okay with this proposal at this point?
I know the Captain Sprague's been working with them. Of course, we have the issues we all know about, but it's certainly not been due to the management, this large crowd.
Yeah.
I will say that Officer Vance Bithell should get an award for being down there every Street Fest.
Well, we appreciate it. I love having the bike patrol there. They do a good job, and it really helps to kind of get them around, see things and get there quickly. So, Council, other questions or discussion points?
I could just make a comment. So I've been going to this for years. I was involved with the chamber, and I can say that it's in good hands with Ed. Ed's doing a really good job with it.
Thank you.
I really like the entertainment that comes out, so I like bringing the big stage for St. George. I think that's a good addition because I think that's a big part of it. Every time I've gone, the bands they get and the things, it's really a big draw. The one question I have on it is I think this is really good for St. George. I think creating this downtown, this event is excellent for having something to do and creating culture in St. George, so I really like it. The one question I have is how much does the city want to sponsor it? Is this something that we want to go that far in? That's just the question, and I'm not saying yes or no, but I do think it's a really good part, and I think it's in good hands of St. George.
My answer to that, last year, we were getting 2,000 a month, and I think that was supposed to be short term, so I asked for only 1,000. It was tough, and I'm hoping after this year that we don't ask the city for any funds on this. We'd love to be self-sufficient. There's no reason it shouldn't if it's done properly. Aside from in-kind contributions like the stage and those things, hopefully there won't be any financial sponsorship next year. So.
I agree with Greg. I think it's in better hands now with
Thank you.
Ed. And so I'm willing to go all in on this for this time.
And I will wash your car for a month.
Can't do that.
In the minute.
Don't write that down. Don't
Hey,
write that down.
That's a bribe. Sorry, I can't take it. But and hope and trust that you can make it self-sustaining so that the city doesn't have to be such a large participant. I don't mind the in-kind, if we have to do the stage or whatever, but so I will make a motion to approve the request for the St. George Street Fest.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Michelle with a second by Danielle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Thank
Got
you.
it unanimously. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, thank you. And Ed, one thing that I think would help next year, maybe a little bit of maybe a reconciliation, just to kind of show some of the numbers,
Happy to do that.
some of the way funds were used, things like that.
Sure.
I think that'd be helpful for the mayor and council.
Happy to do that.
And you don't have to do it all in 1 year. I mean, obviously you've had 1 year to try this out, and so I hope this year will get you closer, but just show us the numbers, and that'll help us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Next item on the agenda, item number 5, consider approval of an ordinance amending the PDC zone located at 120 West, 1470 South by adding adolescent stabilization facility to the approved use list for this site. So this is an existing PD, and there's actually 2 uses they're adding, and I'll go through each of those. This is the location. You have I-15, Hilton Drive, Blackridge, and then the 1470. So it's located right at this area. This was approved in 2004 as a specialty hospital detox, and so it was approved. And there were some limitations put on that time on the number of beds that were permitted. This is a close-up showing the property. With the original approval, they were providing the parking off-site at this location, so that is remaining with this application. The request again is to add two uses to this PD zone, which is the adolescent stabilization facility and adolescent day treatment program to assist youth and families. Planning Commission reviewed this request, and they have several conditions. Most of the conditions are regarding the type of license through the state to ensure they maintain or they only do these types of uses, and then that limitation to 30 days, so it's not a long-term care. It's a short-term to help those adolescents that need help at that time. It's according to the applicant, it's to help our suicide prevention for teens who are having short-term issues. And so there's several conditions, but those are the main ones. Planning Commission heard it and recommended approval for this item.
Thank you, John. Questions, council?
Are they here, John? Can we ask them questions?
Yes, they are here.
Okay.
Any questions for John before we do that? Okay. Love to hear from the applicant. If you just state your name for the record.
Sure. Stuart Squires.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi, Daniel.
I think I know your wife.
Yes, you share the same name.
Okay, yeah. Are you guys going to be accepting Medicaid?
That will be something we are definitely wanting to do. We have to get the contract with Medicaid. So
Okay.
it'll be a negotiation process. But
Okay.
yes, that is
Okay.
definitely on the,
And then
I hope
there's-
so. I know
And then
it's
there's different
necessary.
Medicaid providers too, so
yeah.
it takes some effort.
Yeah. Well,
But if you're willing, that's helpful.
yeah. I know that would be huge here.
Yeah.
I know what you're doing is really necessary. And then if you're able to accept Medicaid, obviously that's going to be a huge benefit to the
Yeah.
community. So thank you.
That is on our plan, but yeah.
Okay.
have to do some more.
Anything else you'd like to say to us, Stuart?
This, as you already know, this is a huge need for St. George and Utah in general. The next closest facility that will do our kind of treatment's about 270 miles away.
Yeah.
And even their treatment won't touch what we're going to be doing. They just usually send them there, and then they do a medical model, give them medication, and then send them home. Ours will be doing that, stabilizing them, but then our day treatment is geared towards family involvement, where we'll do some really intense family work, which is going to be, yeah, there's very few facilities that are doing this throughout the country that we're looking to do. So.
I think it is a great need, and I appreciate that we're adding uses that are needs in addition to the ones that were already authorized. So anyway,
It's taken a minute, but you're almost there.
Yeah, we still got a few things with the state, but we're almost there with the state license. So
Stuart's
hard.
been working on this for a while, so.
yep.
I think it's good to see that building being used and it's set up for it.
Yeah.
Right now, it's great.
It is.
Great location, great use. It's good to see it put back in service.
cool.
Council, any other questions or comments?
Just thank you.
You bet. Thank you guys.
Ready for a motion then, council?
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the zone change amendment, adding to the use list adolescent stabilization facility.
Second.
Have a motion by Jimmy with a second by, was that you, Brian? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, consider approval of an ordinance amending the general plan from low-density residential to PO professional office on approximately 3 acres located at 2046 North 2 Weep Drive. So this is a request to change the general plan. This is 2 Weep located here, 2000 North, and it's this area, actually this corner here, they're requesting a general plan amendment for this property. There is an existing facility located here. It's owned by the Ted Worthen Center. I think it was called Platinum Care prior to that. They did receive a CUP in the early 2000s for this. At that time, they could request a CUP for the type of use that they were operating at that time. They have been they did abandon that use. They haven't operated for approximately 2 years, and so the new ordinance doesn't allow for the CUP, and so they are now pursuing a professional office land use designation with the idea they'll follow that up with the appropriate zoning to continue that use. They are requesting this entire area be a land use designated as professional office, which would allow for 2 types of zoning. It would allow for an AP use, administrative professional, and also a plan development administrative professional zone. Those are the 2 zones that would translate into.
John, can you kind of explain the difference just a little bit?
Yes.
I want to make sure those that are here for the public understand that.
So you have a professional office zone, which if you build it, you can do whatever uses are allowed. There's not very much review on the building unless there's certain triggers, but generally on this size of lot, you're not going to trigger any of those review. And so there's once the zoning is approved, there's really little oversight from the council when it comes forward. If you do a plan development zone AP, that means that the zoning would come forward to planning commission, and or city council. They would review the building height. They would make sure that it fits the scale and it's appropriate for the area. They'll look at all the uses, and they'll make sure that those uses fit in the character of that area and it's appropriate for for that area. And so with a plan development AP zone, it gives the city council much more control to make sure that what uses and the building that goes in there fits the character of that area.
I think that's an important distinction to make. And you mentioned previously, we're not zoning tonight.
That's correct.
This is a general plan, but zoning would be the next step. And so I think, typically council, this is, again, it's kind of up to us and how we direct staff. But I would think on this kind of a parcel, if the council were to approve this application for this new land use for the general plan, I would think want to request the planned development zone so that we could review elevations, materials, colors, and have a little bit more ability to do that, given that it's in a neighborhood.
And limit the use list, Mayor.
Can be done as well. And there's some, as we consider this, and I know I'm interrupting, but as you look at that undeveloped part of the parcel, probably, given the nature of the street there, probably not very reasonable to think that there would be single-family homes built fronting Two-Weep there. It's a busy enough access road. Probably we would want that access to come from the adjoining street or the intersecting street. And so, there's, as we think through all this, professional office, if done right, can be a good neighbor, as has been my experience. But anyway, I know I'm interrupting, but I want to just be thinking through that as we consider the rest of this. So please proceed if you would.
And the PD zone gives the ability for the council to look at the surrounding area and see what makes sense and limit those uses to make sure that whatever use does go in there would be a good neighbor. And so it gives that additional oversight that a standard zone would not provide. This is just a close-up. The general plan is LDR, which is low density residential. The zoning is R110. Here's a couple street views of the site.
John, just for my clarification, that care center facility they're going to try to keep that a care.
That's our understanding, is that they want to operate it as it was operated before. And that concludes staff's presentation. Planning Commission did take public comment on this item, did recommend approval 5-2.
Thank you. Council, discussion, and then, is the applicant here actually before that? Is the applicant here, and would they care to say anything? Love to hear from you if you're so inclined.
So I'm Rob Christie and Judy Whitlow. We're board members of the Ted Wortham Trust. Our intention is for the current facility to be used exactly as it was before, as an assisted living centre. So there's no change to that. It has been vacant for
About a year, a little over a year.
a little over a year. So in terms of changes, we're looking at anything. The Ted Wortham Trust actually provides the funding that, the leasing out, the funds that come in, provided for people, decision made by the board for people in the last legs of life. So we do provide financial support there, and that's in tune with the trust itself. So that's our purpose. Anything?
Yeah, we need some movement on this because at this point we can't have that facility leased. So we need to have some approval on this.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions for the applicant or for staff?
So currently, there's no plans for the remaining vacant piece of that property?
No.
Okay.
Certainly we would like to entertain something if something was going forward.
Sean, anything from a legal perspective here before we move further?
Yeah, I'm Mayor. I think the comments that you made were very appropriate and accurate. If their goal is to continue to use it as it's being used, you could rezone it as a PD, and then with that one use there, and then you do have the control over any additional uses that might go in. As you know, over the years, we've had several contacts with the neighbors because they've heard various rumors about it being used for different things. I'm not sure if they were aware of this particular item being on the agenda tonight, but we've had them come in because it is mainly a residential area. That corner is a residential corner, and then of course 2000 North, which is the busier street than Two Weep, is much busier than we had actually planned.
Right.
Because it wasn't planned from our end on extending through
To go
the
clear
lava
to
beds.
Ivans.
That's right.
Mhm.
And so putting some more intense use, which could go in if you just simply change it to professional offices, could cause even more traffic on there. So I think to allow them to move forward and do what they want to do, going the route of a PD would probably be the most advisable.
For the next step, right?
That's right.
Okay, but we're not doing that
tonight.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure because, a lot of times you get the assurances that it'll be used. However, once there is a change, you have no control over that.
So would it be, I'm going to ask the question, but, even though we're only approving potentially the general plan today, would it be appropriate in a motion if someone's so inclined to direct staff and to request that if the next step is taken for zoning that we request it be PD?
That would be advisable, yes.
Yeah, because then again, it just gives us a chance to look at every aspect of that.
And also puts it on the record.
Yep.
That is the intent.
Yep. Thank you. Other questions or comments?
I think in my conversation with some of the neighbors, that was some of the concern, is that if we were changing this to professional office, that suddenly you would see high-rise apartment buildings there. So most of the letters I received and the conversations I've had, they've been okay with the concept of PD. Okay. So I think that's appropriate, and I'm okay with that moving forward as it will come back to us, and we can make those decisions as the zoning changes come in.
And, this isn't a public hearing today, but if there's something that we've missed in this to this point, I would be okay taking a comment or two from the neighborhood, or if there's someone interested. We have received some good emails and letters on this, and we appreciate you being involved. As former council member Joe Bocut used to say, we prefer that. We prefer you get involved early, because if you don't, sometimes we just think, then it's all good, and you're all okay with it. If there are concerns, we're glad to have them expressed on the front end so that we can respond and talk through these things. So anyway, is there anyone that would like to say anything today? Anything point that we may have missed? We do want to be sensitive, and I'm sure the operators and owners do too, to the neighborhood, and I think we can accomplish both purposes if we do what we've kind of talked about in the next step, if this passes today. But any comments?
Mayor, oh,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
I add, I mean, the residents that I did talk to, just for the sake of the trustees, that they felt like you've been a great neighbor. So I think that their desire, from all the ones that I heard from anyway, their desire is that you would go forward the way that you have been, because it's been a great addition to the neighborhood.
It's sort of the fear of the unknown that, makes you worry, doesn't it? And so I think we can solve those things, but okay. Well then, council, is someone ready to make a motion, or does someone want to comment? Yes, maybe one. Yep, and I've read that. Okay. Thank you.
Can we get a name, Mayor?
Yeah, what was your name? Because that will be on the record. Thank you. Cindy Gilmore. Yes.
And my name is Sharon Turley.
Sharon.
And just first of all, thank you. Thank you for the consideration and taking into account the letters and calls that you've received, because there is a lot of concern. So just mainly I want to express that to you. Thank you for going forward, that we can protect the neighborhood as it has been, and acknowledging that there is a lot of traffic on that 2000, and doing anything we can to make sure that we don't increase that. So recommending that the planned development would be a wonderful step, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just so we're aware, St. George is growing, and we're not going to hold the traffic down for too while. So
It is, but we do want to be sensitive, and we'll do the best we can, and we can do this again together at the zoning process. We can have another chance to look. And once it's zoned, again, there don't appear to be any imminent plans, but when it's zoned PD, as we call it, then that means it has to come back to the city council and through the public setting before anything can be done. Okay.
Okay, Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion if you're ready.
Perfect.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the general plan amendment from low-density residential to professional office on approximately 3 acres at 2046 North Tuweep Drive, with a strong recommendation that it come back as PD.
Second.
I messed that up.
Mayor, I just wonder if the councilman would like to make the motion that on the condition that any underlying zoning that comes in will be a PD zone.
That's what I meant to say.
Just like that.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I agree.
So we have a motion by Jimmy with a second by Michelle, and a little help, a little assist from the attorney. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Danielle this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and the applicants as well. Go to the next step.
The next item number 7, the applicant has requested to table that item for a later date.
Number 7?
Correct.
Boy, it's one of those kinds of days, huh?
Yeah, it is. And it would be a postponement, not a withdrawal of the application.
Gotcha.
Mayor, we need a motion
We need a motion to table that since it was
on the agenda.
on the agenda.
Is it too date specific?
If you don't do a date, then you need a motion later on to put it on.
Should we ask
Do you have a
agenda.
date, Tim?
Tim, you want to have a date you want us to table this to?
3 months.
Do we plan 3 months ahead?
Well, kind of. So that would be, do you want to go to April 2nd?
That'd be May.
Or May, whatever it
7th.
is?
It'd be
May 7th.
Yeah, that's how it works. Isn't it every 3 months you do general plan?
No, we do general plan
Every
first and third Thursday.
2 weeks.
Well, no, he's right. I think it's January. It's like 4 times a year.
No,
No?
That's a new one to me.
General plan?
Yeah, we hear general plans each quarter.
Four
We hear
times a
general
year.
plans, but we can at the city council.
We can do it
now-
anytime we
now-
want
Now
to.
that he's submitted the application, we can hear it at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We
now
are
that you have that.
renegades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can name the date.
So you tell us if you want to do it sooner than that, we will.
3 months will be good for me.
Okay, then we'll entertain a motion to table this item number 7 on our agenda until May 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Jimmy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. 5/7/20. That'll be here before you know it.
Yeah.
Number 8.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
This application, number 8, is to consider an ordinance changing the general plan from commercial and LDR, low-density residential, land use designations to MDR, medium-density residential, and move a portion of the currently designated MDR, medium-density residential, to COM commercial. Property is generally located south of Canyon View Drive and southwest of Dixie Drive. And as that was kind of a mouthful, I'll go through it. This is the property. It's approximately 84.84 acres. It's 75 acres roughly if you take out the 9-acre Legacy Village parcel. And I'll show you where that is. That's this parcel here that's PDC. This is the existing general plan, and you can see outlined in red is the commercial area. As I get a little closer, this area to the to the west is MDR, and this down here is low-density residential. So the area that they want to change is this area north of this road that's being constructed right now. This commercial area, they want to change that to MDR, as well as this area down in here that's designated LDR. So taking some low-density area and some commercial area and changing it to medium density. Again, this is a general plan, so we're really looking at what just the overall high level uses. You can kind of see that reflected in this legal description here. Again, that is now commercial would become medium density residential. This little piece, I'm going back here, that is now MDR would become commercial. And then this down here would become medium density residential. And then just a couple looks at the property. Again, this is kind of a little more terrain to this property as you go up Dixie Drive. And then on Canyon View Drive, you can see the property to the north is a little bit more, again, got a little bit more contour to it and so forth. So Planning Commission recommended approval of the application.
Any questions, council, on this?
So to clarify, there would be no more low-density residential, and
That's right.
Other
Just
questions?
right to the point
Comments? Yeah. This doesn't require a public hearing either. Anything from the applicant? He's like, oh, yeah. Nothing to add. All right, council. Ready for motion or discussion if you want to discuss.
I can make a comment. I know this area pretty well, and I think that the change to medium density residential that goes up to Canyon View Drive and this, I think that fits well with what's around the area.
I agree.
For that. So just a comment there. I think it's a good area for it.
We know we've got to have, multiple products, multiple opportunities for those products, and that it starts with zoning. So, well, I'd be ready for a motion if you're so inclined, council.
So I can make a motion I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance changing the general plan from commercial and low-density residential land use designations to medium-density residential, and move a portion of the currently designated medium-density residential to commercial, as stated here.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Greg and a second by Danielle. Any comments or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Greg again, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9.
I must be getting old. Here we go. Okay. This is, item number 9 is to consider an ordinance for a zone change amendment to the Desert Color PDR, which is a planned development residential zone to develop Phase 4 of Auburn Hills in the Desert Color development. The property is outlined in red. Now the property that I've outlined in blue is actually Phase 3. Particularly tonight, we're looking at Phase 4, which is the red section. But I wanted to kind of give it some context because there's not a lot around it right now. A lot of that infrastructure is being moved and put in right now. Again, to give it a little context, you can see it outlined in red, kind of at the bottom right of this diagram here. That's the area for this particular application. It's in the T&Z residential area. And again, this is just the next phase of Auburn Hills. This is a multifamily product. I'll show you the elevations here in just a second. There are 11 buildings that are being proposed at this site, ranging from, I believe, 4 plexes to 8 plexes. And there are 59 units in this particular phase. This is a look at the elevations of the development. There on this table are the samples of the materials that would be used. The height of the building is 27 feet to the peak of the roofs, and again here are the samples of the materials. With that, again, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the application. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Council, questions on this one? Greg?
On your elevations, it has numbers, those red numbers on the, I was just wondering what those designate.
Those correspond with the different types of materials that would be used.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The applicant may be able to shed a little more light on that.
It's moving along out there.
Oh, it's crazy.
That's what I was thinking. It's fun to drive out there now and see the motion of the project.
It's kind of fun to see the zone, or the drone photos in the state of the city yesterday, and that was 2 weeks ago. It's changed since then. So,
If you're ready for a motion,
yeah.
I will make a motion to approve the ordinance for a zone change amendment to the Desert Color PDR to develop Phase 4 of Auburn Hills in the Desert Color development.
Second.
motion by Michelle with a second by Brian. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Wes? Number 10, Tech Ridge. Oh.
Let me see if I can find it right there. Okay. Item 10 is a request to consider approval of a hillside development permit to allow a revision of a previously approved hillside permit. This revision is to allow for stormwater and a water line to travel from the top of Tech Ridge Mesa down to intercept Cloud Drive and continue to Black Ridge Cove, and then it'll terminate at the vicinity of Indian Hills Drive. So here's obviously Tech Ridge Drive here. The proposal, and I'll just show you right here since you have this aerial, the proposal Cloud Drive, and I'll show you that in a minute, comes down something like that.
the proposal is to utilize that scar right there to install water and storm drain line from Tech Ridge down to Cloud Drive and then follow Cloud Drive down into Indian Hills Drive. So it'd be water and storm drain that would come off of the airport, the old airport property. Let's
Wes,
see.
can you tell us why we want to do it that way?
I think one of the reasons, well, when Cloud Drive went to Hillside, the portion right here that was in, that goes right there was in the landslide area.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns when it went to Hillside, as they talked about it, was to avoid any leakage of any pipes within that roadway.
Yep.
Because water is the adversary of,
Wet.
yes, yes, of a
It
landslide.
just makes sense to
Yeah.
separate those two if we possibly can.
So you'll still see storm drain come down Cloud Drive, but it'll be a smaller pipe. But you won't have water come down Cloud Drive, but you will have sewer. And so this was just an opportunity to use a scarred portion of the hillside and put the utilities there so that they wouldn't be located within the landslide area. And that was really the big reason.
Thank you.
So you can see right here, here's the slope analysis map. So here's Cloud Drive, and then this is where it would extend up to that area there. Let me see what else I have there. So there you go. That's just another aerial drawing of it. And so you can see right here, I don't think that's the best. So that's basically the scar right there. So they did talk about that there were some rocks along here that they may pull down just to avoid them from coming down on top of that. And so they would be held to stay within that area right here for the utility lines. So that was one concern Hillside had. Make sure your spoils are not going over the side. You got to get them out of there and keep everything on this side over here. So there'll be a little drainage ditch because the plan is to slope. So this is supposed to be in the end, it's supposed to be a trail from Black Ridge, from the Black Ridge development. Let me see what that shows here. It's supposed to be a trail that'll come up here. There's a trail that comes up Cloud Drive up to the airport, and then this will be an offshoot from that, and that trail will come up there and then hook into the trail that goes around. And so you won't see the trail built now. Their proposal is just to road base it when it's complete, and then when the trail gets built around the airport, then they'll build that at the same time and connect it. They don't want to build it right now, just want to leave it as road base.
Is that an improved trail, like a paved trail?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
It's part of that.
So like if you're training for the Ironman, that's probably where you're going to want to train, because
It's
it's going
where-
to be like this.
Greg will do that. Greg
Yeah.
will.
Not me.
Won't be me.
But yeah, so yeah, it'll be an improved trail that will go up there. So it'll be an offshoot just from the trail that goes up Cloud Drive.
I have to do it on my.
And they felt like that was just a good use of that. Hide the scar. There'll be a black paved trail and so forth. And the pipes to help mitigate any leakage, even though you're not in the landslide area, the pipes will be the fused pipe. They won't have joints to them, so that to kind of make it a solid pipe all the way down.
What's the grade on that, Wes?
I don't know right offhand. I know it's
I want to make
steep.
sure it's at least 13%, because I think Washington City, their steepest one's 12. So we want our hellhole to be more hellish than their hellhole.
It's 18%, Craig said.
Yes, we win.
So like, instead of running Castle Rock, you can come over here and run this.
Perfect.
Only you would be happy.
There might be someone else in this room.
Maybe
Where are
Mark
you?
Mortensen.
Craig.
Sherlane.
Mark's not in here.
Craig might be.
Sherlane. Yeah. I can go down it.
I think Adam might be happy
I have
about
brakes.
it.
That's it.
Adam, let me ask you a question in terms of not building the trail right now. Are we okay with that? I know it would be a trail to sort of nowhere for a minute, but I'm just wondering, where's that trail go when does it go down the road?
Yeah, so if you come back to here to Cloud Drive, so there'll be a trail along Cloud Drive, and that's where it'll tie into it, and then it'll come up
And then Tech Ridge will ultimately have a trail that goes around the perimeter.
The perimeter, right.
Yes. Council, thank you. This is
Mhm.
Craig Coates. The applicant didn't want to pave the trail right now because they didn't want the trail to nowhere until the rim trail is complete. Because if we don't have that, then we just get a lot of looky-loos that come up and be a danger up there on that end. And so they didn't want to do that section.
I'm not really concerned as much about what they want because they're doing this really with our money, with citizens' money,
Okay.
because this is part of their agreement. And so I appreciate that they don't want to, but I'm wondering what we want. And it may be, I realize it may be a little bit till we get that trail along the top, but this is really our money. It's coming out of the purchase price of Tech Ridge. Isn't that correct, Sean? So anyway, I'm not saying that we should want it right now, and maybe we don't want to be building it and maintaining it, and quite this soon. But I just want to ask the question.
I just like the thinking face of Adam over there.
Is the concern legitimate that, people start marching up there, that it like draws people in? I don't know.
Well, once the road's up, they're going to be going up there.
Yeah, and with the road going up, the plan is to use the existing runway as to have a temporary path until it gets connected in the future.
Except there isn't an existing runway.
No, there's portions that are left up there. They milled up some, but we've come up with a path that people could drive and still have a road to connect from the end of Cloud Drive to the other end.
Yeah.
And so there'd be a place to get off. Right here, there's no real place to get off unless we extended it clear to where the existing runway is. And that's a possibility. Just in our minds, we're thinking to construct it and not let the asphalt sit and bake for 2 or 3 years until the rim trail gets designed and built. And that's all we were thinking.
And that's a fair point. That's my concern too. I'm looking forward to, seeing this move along, and just wondering how long it's going to be before we have anything public that benefits the public on Tech Ridge. Because that's why we bought it, in a sense, or why we agreed to sell it, was because there would be public benefit. So anyway, maybe this isn't quite the time to pull the trigger on it, and but I just don't want to lose sight of that. I want to make sure that we have a public benefit up there as soon as possible.
I think we should. I worry that we lose the leverage, and who knows how long it might be, and then trying to come back and get the trail then put in at some future date.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's been well said. This is, the city's a partner here, and I think at some point we have to start requiring that the items we've been asking for all along on this project start to go in.
Mhm.
I think we're probably to that point. I don't know that we've got a precedent necessarily that says that we don't put in a trail unless it's fully looped or connected.
I don't think we do, because we have all these missing links, right?
We do have a few. But Craig, are you saying, I would like to see it, but there's a simple connection you could do so that it doesn't dump out to nowhere?
We'd have to look at it. I don't know. I haven't thought past that, to tell you the truth, but it's something we should look at to see if we can, if this is, important, we can look at getting it over to maybe the asphalt that is there.
Right, and I think that's what I'd be looking for now, is just linking it to the road, because it will get use, but it's not going to be high use initially. But anyway, it's just a thought. I don't mean to be in any way difficult. I just want to make sure that the citizens are getting their benefit out of this purchase. Anyway, sorry to complicate it.
So we'll just work with staff and you guys to figure out that aspect of it, or?
Well, I think we'd want to do it as, it's up to the council if they want to put it in the motion.
I guess just a comment. A concern is, if we're, I'm sure this is needed to make that work up there. And, if we're going to scar up the hill, I like it more if it has a trail on it, where it has a usage. So I'd like to make sure that gets done at some point. So if it wasn't done now, I just want to make sure that it doesn't get, down the road, it didn't work, and just kind of, yeah.
One of the cool things about it for me would be that people see it's starting to happen. It's the first segment of the trail, and it's starting to happen. And I would sort of look at it as a precedent, if it were me, and say, hey, wherever the first segment of the trail starts over by the restaurant, Cliffside, I'd want to see that start as soon as possible too. You know, I want to start seeing it, even though you're going to have to turn around. You know, you're not going to have a complete loop for a while. I don't know. I want to make sure that when we can, we see it built, and that's how our trail system started. You know, it started with one trail.
Can I suggest, Mayor, if we're going to do that, which I'm totally comfortable with doing that and think we probably should, but I also think when we do those kind of things, we should sign them really well so that, especially visitors, that
At
they
the
know
bottom.
that this is a trail to the top. It's 0.2 miles or whatever
Yeah.
it is, and just give them and it might even be fun to put signs up that show what the future of that space will
Right.
be. So.
Right. Ready for a motion if you are, unless there are other things you want to talk about. That's just one.
I'll make a motion that we approve item 10, a hillside development permit to allow a revision of a previously approved hillside permit. This revision is to allow a stormwater line and water line to travel from the top of Tech Ridge Mesa down in the SCAR to intercept Cloud Drive and continue down to Black Ridge Cove and terminate in the vicinity of Indian Hills Drive, and that we would like for the trail that is over the top of this to be paved and signed.
Second.
We have a motion by Danielle and a second by Brian, and a comment by Sean.
The like has meant require? Is that what you mean? Require them to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So second, okay with that?
Yeah, I
then
did say like. That was very...
Yeah.
We would like. That was very passive.
No, I thought it was very friendly.
Please,
but
That'd be
It's
so
sort
nice.
of still more transition from planning commission.
I
you
know, I'm
See?
struggling.
Yeah, it's okay. You're doing great. Is that okay, Brian? So we have a motion and a second, and a slightly modified motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 11 is a request to consider approval of a preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 4, 59-lot residential subdivision in the desert colored development. Property is 5.66 acres. The density is 10.42 dwelling units an acre. Zone is PDR. So as Dan just recently did the zone change amendment, this is just the preliminary plat. There's the site as Dan pointed out. And there's your layout right there. That's your 59 lots. These would be public streets around the perimeters of them, and then they would be serviced by alleys to each of the back.
That is cool. Questions, council?
That's good.
This is just the preliminary plat for what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, motion to approve the preliminary, I hate that word, you know that. The preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 4.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, number 12, Blue Heron.
Okay, item 12 is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 22-lot residential subdivision called Blue Heron Estates. Site is located at approximately 1965 South, 3000 East. Number of lots is 22. The property is 8.6 for a density of 2.56 dwelling units an acre. Zoning is RE 12.5. General plan is LDR. So here's the site right there. There's 3000 East right there. I can't remember the name of that elementary school, but that's right there. 3210 is here. So it kind of goes between 3000 and 3210 East. This plat was originally approved in I want to say 2017 or 2018. They never did anything with it, so the plat expired in that, and they're just bringing it back. So here's 3000, here's 3210. The proposal is along 3210 to not use our standard roadway cross sections, but to go with more of a rural cross section. So you would have, I believe, is 36 feet of pavement here. You would have a borrow swell on either side to collect the drainage off. On this westerly side, you would have a trail or a pathway, in lieu of a sidewalk. Normally the rural trail doesn't have a sidewalk, but because of the adjacency to the schools, we felt like a trail or a pathway should be built along there for kids to walk along. So we just have one sidewalk pathway paved trail thing on the westerly side, and then a little gap here. The reason we looked at doing it here on the west side is if you look down 3210 East, you'll notice, let's see right here, you'll notice that mostly along the west side there really is nothing other than the Questar and at South Mountain Church property with nothing here. But if you get along this easterly side, you have a number of buildings that have already been built, and that home there, that home there, and so forth. And so as we looked at it, it seemed like it made more sense and less of an impact if you put the pathway on the west side instead of the east side, because most of those buildings will sit about right there, pretty close. And so it seemed like it was better to put it on that westerly side where you have more room to maybe transition if you have to with grade to get back to existing grade. That make sense?
No, you're missing me completely. What? Show on here.
So the
Yeah.
proposal was to put it on the west side, the sidewalk path, the trail.
Okay.
And the reason was just because there's
The
already
buildings.
existing buildings along that
Okay,
side.
so what about this? So the sidewalk will be out on the road, and then
Yeah, so you'll actually have the paved surface here,
okay.
36 feet, so you'd have 2 lanes, about a 5 or 6 foot shoulder on either side.
And that's
And-
36.
Yeah, and then you'd have a borrow ditch on either side,
Okay.
and then about 2 feet, I can't remember what that number is there, I can't see anymore, right here on that side, and then the pathway would be on the westerly side, and it would just be a paved path, asphalt paved.
How wide? I didn't notice.
8 feet. 8 feet.
So not as wide as a regular
Not as
path,
wide as a regular trail.
but wider than a sidewalk.
Yeah, because that allowed us to stay within the 60-foot right-of-way, but then gave us a little area on that side to then transition grade if we need to tie back to existing.
And the idea is it's a rural setting, so
Right.
it's a little different.
It
We're
is.
creating something that is good for pedestrians, and yet it's not your typical
Right.
R110
Yes.
street, okay, with sidewalk.
And so we looked at it, and just to give you, so here's 3210. We looked at doing the cross section of the rural cross section from that point right here to that point right there. Obviously, it's been improved on this westerly side here, but you could still do more of a rural fill on the easterly side, and then through here we would go back. The reason we didn't extend it up is this development's already been built. They have curb gutter here. This property's in Washington, and they will require curb and gutter, and so you kind of lose it right there at that point.
Okay, so what about the other, just south of South Mountain Church, that approved subdivision plat? That's going to have curb and gutter, or not?
Well, we approved it that way under the preliminary plat. We'll have to get back with them and talk to them about changing that cross section and go.
Because they're moving dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today.
We haven't approved the construction drawings, so we'll just have to work with them on providing that rural cross section through there.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we say rural cross section in this area, but I mean, are we staying rural? It seems like this is not rural moving forward. Everything's developing out into.
Most of zoning in here is still A1. This one is R110, and like I said, that one is RE12.5. And so, yeah, we're trying to save the feel that it is still kind of an urban agricultural area.
Jimmy?
So it's already approved at 12.5?
Yes. It was approved a long time ago. I want to say in the early mid-2000s.
Six?
2006.
Before I was on the council.
RE 12.5 does allow for an
That's
animal.
For animal
Does.
rights, yeah.
So I guess I'll have to be okay with it.
Feel bad, do you?
Yeah, no one will have an animal on that size, but so then I just off topic, but part of that discussion is if we're doing a rural cross section along there, which I like, what about along 2000 on that same subdivision? Now, south again of the property we're talking about, since it's all
right here?
Yeah, along that subdivision that's being done, that's already approved on the R110.
Right.
You mean
That has to have curb and gutter
right
and
there?
sidewalk.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
We've got to go from 3,000 to the high school. We've got to get that done. Anyways, that's another discussion, but
Oh, you mean finishing 2,000 through here?
yeah, we're getting close now with the South Mountain Church already has it.
Right.
The high school already has
I
it.
believe their first phase is right up here.
That's where they're moving the dirt right now, right on 2,000.
Yeah, so I believe that's their first phase, and so you'll see that get improved there.
And that will have curb and gutter and sidewalks.
Yeah.
So we just have that next block.
You'll just have this right through
The
here.
next block to
And Chad's.
and then Chad Drake's.
What Jimmy's saying
Anyways.
is that is an important place to
Yeah.
have one.
We have kids going down that road where we have just a stripe along the road and places for them to walk.
Right. Well, we'll look at that and see how we get that done.
And that could, yeah, we'll talk about that, but that could come in conjunction with whatever's happening with the other piece of property,
Right.
the Dean Matthews property,
Around the,
just up the street. It's
Yeah.
been,
East of the church.
yeah,
South Mountain
somebody's
Church.
purchased it.
Oh, right in here.
Yep.
Right, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it is.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that being subdivided?
It's that one that's coming in for that. Yeah.
So just know that needs to be done as part of that rezone.
Okay. So we'd want, that's what I'm hearing from you, curb gutter sidewalk all the way through here to get
Yeah.
over to that school. Because I know there was somewhat of a request here to possibly not do that there, but we'll have them put it in.
We just need to look real strongly at that. I know it's not part of this approval, but at part of the general overall area, we've got, because of the school being plugged in there,
Yeah.
we've got to do that.
And so 34, I drew these lines on here just so you'd see that 3430 could possibly also be the rural cross-section. And then 2450 from 3,000 over to here, we looked at possibly doing that rural cross-section also along 2450.
And those would all provide adequate area for people to travel, even children to travel. Because you got to remember, they're going west as well to the elementary
Mhm.
school
Right.
from this area.
across the,
Across 3,000.
Yep. Right, through there.
and they're having to traverse 2,000 at their own peril and then try to, yeah, I would never send my kids
there's
there.
not too many that go that way, but
There's a few.
there's a few, and that can change.
I think you would be surprised, and I think if we had connectivity out there, a lot more of them would
Right.
if they felt safe.
Yeah.
And so you feel good, Wes, about it'll feel like good connectivity between the rural space and the sidewalk that's there. Like we'll be able to make that feel safe to go
Yeah,
off
because- and
sidewalk
that's
and
one
then
reason
onto
why-
the
that's why we
trail
put-
that you're.
We put the borrow ditch here so that it would be a buffer between the road and the pathway. So, and then we provided a larger shoulder here. So we tried to make it work that way so that those walking on the path feel safe, even though there's no curb and gutter or something out there.
Okay, that
And then-
helps me.
And then, just one other thing, and then with this, we've, you'll see right here, here is the proposed cross-section for 3,000 East. Right now, Public Works has hired a consultant to design and finish, to finish the improvements along 3,000 East from 1580 down to right there. And,
Is that
Spilkers.
Spilkers?
Chuck
Yeah.
Spilker.
Yeah.
That's Chuck's. So
Seg Miller. It's
Yeah.
right by Seg Miller.
And so, as we looked at that and talked about budget, I think our first, based on what the budget they have, we're going to try to finish that portion first based on the budget that's there, which would be this development here and this development here. And as we talk to them, their phasing starts here with phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. We've talked to them and said the proposal with them is you dedicate that right of way now with this, and the city will then finish the improvements, because we want to do all the improvements along 3,000 in this area at the same time, so they're consistent, so they work together, instead of having this developer build them and this developer build them and then trying to match what's there. So the proposal is they dedicate it, the city will do the improvements when they finish that portion of the road here in the near future.
Okay.
And that's with whatever we're doing with the ditch and everything?
Yep.
We'll finish, so I'll go back to that. We'll build this, you just give us the right of way so we don't have to try to acquire it, because we think we'll be ahead of them when this,
Gotcha.
when this is built. And that just avoids having to have to try to work out acquiring the right of way.
Great. 3 more questions. I'm kidding.
You're fine, Jimmy.
No,
Any other questions? Otherwise, ready for a motion?
Motion to approve the preliminary plot for Blue Herring Estates, a 22-lot residential subdivision located at approximately 1965 South, 3000 East.
Second.
Motion by Brian with a second by Greg. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Let's go
I
on
think
to
I've
number
seen a
13.
blue heron down there.
Have you?
I don't know, some kind of weird bird.
They kind of look like prehistoric birds, you know?
Yeah.
I love them. A giant blue heron.
A few of them that fly around down there once in a while.
We have some by the river too. I see them in my backyard by the river.
Of course, they're not going to have much of a place to go anymore.
I know. It makes me sad.
Send them over by me. Sean, are you taking this next one?
Yes.
Number 13.
Yes, Mayor. This is the consider approval of an ordinance regulating the design, location, construction of small wireless facilities in public rights-of-way. And you may recall that, I think it was not last session, but the session before, the legislature pretty much mandated that local entities have ordinances regarding these small wireless facilities, also known as 5G. And so we've been working with other cities to try to come up with a model ordinance, and we've found that it's kind of tricky to do that. So we're a little late in getting this done, but we also knew from the telecoms that St. George was not one of those areas was high on their list to put the 5G technology in right away. But Brian worked hard on putting together this ordinance and considering other ordinances in cities across the state. Now, not to bore you with all the details of how this came about, we did, as a league, negotiate on this, and were able to make Lori happy, who's not here right now, that they could not locate on our power poles, for example, because the original bill said they could go on any one of our structures. Obviously, not all of our structures can support a wireless facility because of wind loads, et cetera. Also, one of the things that we brought up from St. George is we had done the decorative poles along St. George Boulevard, for example, and putting a facility on one of those can really take away from that look. So there are things that the state has allowed us to do regarding those that will require them and give us some say on if they put it on one of those decorative poles, how they can look, how they can match, what color they can be, and in some cases probably would not work. But it does require us to allow them in our rights of way, and that's the future.
It's a fairly heavy-handed.
Well, I would say
but not
this,
as bad as it was going to be.
Not as bad as it was going to be,
Yeah.
and in my opinion, very premature, because even over the last 2 years, the FCC has been actively changing the federal regulations and debating on these small wireless facilities. So I don't believe even our current state law is in harmony with the federal law as it's evolving.
So we may be back.
We will be back. That's for sure. But I think we were able to get a good compromise, at least on where they can locate, even if in their rights of way. They can't, if we have a pole that doesn't have the capacity to do it, they'd have to put up their own pole or replace our pole. Also, I just want to point out that in this ordinance there are some fees, and so we're asking you to approve with the ordinance the fees that are in here. And I'll just give you an example of some that are in here. There's for permit applications, $100 for each small facility, $250 for each utility pole that they install it on, $1,000 for each utility pole that has to be modified or replaced. These are in line with other fees that others have adopted, and then some of the fees here are in accordance with state law because there are some references in state law that statutes that cap the fees that we can charge.
Sean, are those one-time fees or yearly fees?
There's ongoing fees if they're located on our poles as well.
Appreciate the effort to do this. We're complying with state law essentially, and being prepared even though it's not here yet. Likelihood is it'll be here in some fashion at some point.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any questions, council, on this? Then I would be ready for a motion if you're so inclined.
I'll make the motion. Make a motion we approve an ordinance regulating the design, location, and construction of small wires facilities in public rights of way, as it's written.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Greg, seconded by Brian. Discussion on the motion,
I think we need to include the fee schedule.
including the fee schedule, yeah.
Including the fee schedule.
Is that okay?
Second.
That modified motion by Greg, seconded by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Again, thank you, Sean, for you and your staff's work on that, starting in the legislature, because it was worse.
And Brian did a great job on putting this together.
Good deal.
Next item number 14, consider approval of an ordinance adopting Title 4, Chapter 10 of City Code, Health, Safety, and Property Maintenance. This is the ordinance that staff took to the City Council and to the work meeting and received some input. Staff went through and made those modifications as requested by the City Council. This ordinance primarily deals with outside storage. We did make some modifications to the outside storage and restricting typical indoor furniture to not be permitted to be stored outside in the front area, and so that was a modification that was made. We also made the modification to the inoperable vehicles and the area that dealt with registered vehicles. That was removed. Under this draft ordinance, you are permitted to have one inoperable vehicle in the front yard under the standards that are set forth in this draft ordinance if approved. The weeds and plants, that's pretty much stayed how the council had seen it. We did make those exceptions for open space and agriculture and also natural vegetation. We also another portion of this ordinance is the habitable dwelling that requires utilities and the appropriate facilities for a structure in order to be habited. And that's kind of just a quick overview. I know we spent a lot more time on it. I thought it'd be good just to give a quick overview of the ordinance and not get into too much detail.
We were there for it.
Yes.
But I appreciate it for the public as well and for the record, so thank you, John. Any questions or comments on this, council? Be ready for a motion then.
Motion to approve the ordinance adopting Title 4, Chapter 10 of the City Code, Health, Safety, and Property Maintenance.
Second.
Motion by Brian with a second by Michelle. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
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 See how fun?
That really threw me.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure which direction it was coming.
Motion passes unanimously. Number 15. You, Cameron?
Mayor, council, sorry you have to listen to me.
We're happy to get to listen to you.
Oh, there's others that are much more entertaining. I can bring Wes back up and.
No, we like Wes too, but no.
Okay, so this item has some revisions, some proposed revisions to Title 7, Chapter 6, the ordinance for the airport. And I was just going to go through, just highlight some of the changes. For the most part, there's some old terms in there that we needed to update. There's some old regulations that we needed to update. And then one of the larger items on here was the repeal of the Airport Advisory Board. Some of the other changes, just to highlight a few of them. We did update where our airport standards are found. They're found online. We also have a copy here, but it was referring to somewhere else in another table that we didn't have in there, so we updated that. We did propose to revise, if you go out and park at the airport, the parking, today you can only be there for 15 days, up to 15 days without written approval from the airport manager. We've changed that to where it's 30 days now. We have found a few that have gone beyond that 15 days, and so we think the 30 days is more appropriate. We also updated in the ordinance, the current ordinance, it sets the amount for the fuel flowage fee. Talk about tongue twister. And instead of having it in the ordinance, we just had it to where the city council approves those, and they would be put in the city fee schedule that you update on a yearly basis. That is mostly it, other than just terms and with the FAA and the NTS, well, all the acronyms and stuff like that, putting the definitions in there.
But it also says the current ordinance allows the city manager to issue a citation, so we're taking that out. Bummer. I will make a motion to approve the ordinance amending and enacting Title 7, Chapter 6, Airport of City Code, bringing it current with state and federal laws, and to repeal the advisory board provisions.
Second.
I have a motion by Michelle and a second by Greg. Just to mention, I think that the purposes of the advisory board have been accomplished, and that's really why at this point Rich Staymeyer didn't feel it was necessary. I agree. I thought that was a good thing to have, especially as we were kind of getting going early on the new airport, to make sure conditions were things that were addressed, especially by general aviation. I think they have been, and it's been just really, frankly, we didn't feel necessary. We can still obviously take those concerns as they come forward, but didn't want to have an ordinance on the books that we weren't needing and that we weren't doing. So that's why we decided to do that part as well, if you're so inclined. And there will be a letter. In fact, it's already been drafted, and I read that. So did Adam. I believe Sean has as well. And only one change, and that can, maybe we can do that, coordinate that through Christina. Just need to get my name spelled right, and we'll send that from maybe Rich and me to the members of the Airport Advisory Board, thanking them for their service. Okay? Any other thoughts or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Michelle, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, who said it next? Brian? Did you say?
Aye. Aye again.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. This is when we get a little punchy.
Gets wild.
Yeah.
Gets wild.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Cameron. Appreciate you working on that, and thank Rich for doing the letter. Okay. Okay, where are we? Number 16?
Cats.
Yeah.
Cats are more expensive than they used to be.
Apparently.
Who is doing this one?
Only if you want to
I'll
keep
do
track
it.
of them.
If you want
Do
to
you
keep
wanna
track
do
of
this
it.
one?
I'll do this one.
Adam can address this one, I guess.
I didn't even
Yes,
know
so
people
the,
kept
so the
track of
issue with the cats,
It's
are
a
we
great
talking
deal.
cats? We're talking cats, right? The
Yes.
issue with this is we feel that it'd be a good idea to have the cats chipped. It just helps us be able to track them better, get them back to their owners. We don't really have these issues with the dogs because we've taken that step to have them chipped. Chief, sounds like a lot of other agencies have taken this step. They're reporting positive results. It's reducing the number of animals in the shelter. So this fee is just intended to match our costs to chip the animals.
So it'll go from $40 to $50 to adopt a cat.
Plus, dogs go back to their owners.
Right.
Cats don't.
Well,
They just do their own thing.
That is true.
Got a mind of their own.
Yeah.
Who has cats in here?
I got a cat.
I just barely got a cat for the first time ever. And I didn't think I liked cats, and I love cats.
I think they're
I'm
intriguing.
publicly declaring I like cats. It's
So-
weird in here.
So any questions, council? I
Well-
think it makes sense, but
Will a fee increase, I mean, is this going to have a negative connotation, meaning less cats will be adopted because it's more barrier to entry to adopt one?
But hey, now you've got an upgraded cat.
That's true. You do get an upgraded
It's a high-tech cat.
I asked in the staff meeting if we could chip our kids, but apparently some said they already had, and, no. But it is a $10 increase. That's true. But what we were also told is the rescue groups tend to already do this when they're doing it, and so I think they were supportive, is what we gathered. Not that they're the ones paying the fees, but they think it will be helpful, to the people who do adopt them. So,
What are the fees from the rescue groups? Are we competitive with their rates? This is a weird conversation.
oh, this is
I'm curious to
nothing.
know. We're actually quite a bit lower
Okay.
than what they are. And the rescue fee that we charge, the pet comes spayed, neutered, all of its vaccinations, and now it'll be chipped.
For
So,
$50, what a deal.
Yeah, and this will barely cover our costs. There's
Yeah.
no, in fact, it probably doesn't cover our costs with what we have to do. And if we didn't have the partnerships with some of the veterinarian services and what Best Friends does for us, we wouldn't cover our costs. So they get a pet and they have no expense after that, where if you go to a pet store and buy it,
Yeah.
my last dog, I spent $250,
Yeah.
for the first vet trip. So
Chief, are we moving, are people adopting our
they are,
animals at
absolutely.
a good
The
rate?
dogs move really well.
Cats
The
are
cats are a
tougher.
little bit difficult. This is something we hope. Last month, we took in 15 stray dogs and found 9 owners. We took in about that many cats and found, 0 owners. Like Councilman Hughes said, a lot of times cats will roam and owners don't think to come to the shelter.
Yeah.
So
Do you
we're
remember this-
hoping over time, this has really been a positive thing with the dogs, and we're hoping that continues with the cats.
Do you remember the song, But the Cat Came Back?
I do. The very next day.
Very next day, the cat came back. You just couldn't
Thought
stay
he
away.
was a goner.
Yep. Showing our
Yeah,
age.
no, I have
Do you
not.
know it?
No,
Do you know it?
No.
Come
I'm
on.
not going to admit, no, I'm not as old as you.
But the cat came back the very next day. Okay.
I know one about chickens.
Do you?
I can hear you clucking, but I can't find your nest. You guys know that song?
I don't know that one.
Oh.
Oh, man.
Okay,
Look
so
it up.
this is what happens, Chief. All right.
I am going to approve
Please.
an ordinance increasing the fees for cat adoption at the St. George Animal Shelter.
And in so doing, she's committing to adopt one cat.
No.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. A motion by Michelle and a second by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Imagine that.
The Sun River people hadn't have left. They'd have known my song.
Yeah, I bet they would have.
The Sun River people are here.
Oh, you haven't heard that song?
Yeah, some backup.
Beatbox.
Yeah. Beatbox.
I'm going to look that song up for you guys before we leave.
All right. 17 is an easy one, right, Adam? I think technically, to be in compliance with what the county requires, we've got to be appointed by resolution, all 6 of us, elected officials in the city, to serve on the board, the Administrative Control Board of Washington County Special Service District Number 1, which is the Solid Waste Board. Okay? Could I have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. And number 18. Sean's going to do this one. That was fast, Sean. We got it done fast.
Mayor, Council, I recommend that you approve item number 18.
Okay. Done.
Well,
So moved.
we've gone through the process, correct?
Mayor, yes, Council, as you know, we've gone through the process. We've drafted an agreement. We've come to terms on that. The price was set by the council, and so we're ready to go. This is just signing the agreement and transferring the property.
And this is 400 south?
400 south, yes. That section
Between
200.
200 and 300 east.
That's correct. And it's already closed off, as you see. And for those who haven't driven by in a while, you drive by and the annex is gone.
And so's the
So the back
west.
side, yeah.
And the west
West
side, that's
side.
right, that whole side's gone. So it no longer looks like George Jetson rammed the side, north side of the building there with that futuristic
Yeah.
thing. It's just, it's all gone.
I'm really excited about this street sale. It's going to look so pretty.
Yeah.
It will look really good. I don't know if they've released the official
I haven't seen
plans, publicly, but we're hoping I should call them and say, now's the time to do that. And
Yeah.
so
People will be
can see.
excited.
Yeah.
I will approve the purchase and sell agreement with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the sale of city-owned property located at 400 South Street in the amount of $312,500.
Second.
Motion by Michelle and seconded by Brian. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. I don't have any appointments. We didn't do that updated list. We ran out of time. We are going to update the council appointment list. They don't necessarily have to be done by resolution or anything, but just a couple of things. I keep finding things that I forget. I forgot that Ed was on or that Betty was on. So anyway, we'll do this and just update that list I gave you all before. But I've asked Brian if he would serve on the flood control advisory board. It's the executive committee to replace Ed. Jimmy's on that with me. And then I've asked Danielle to serve as the council liaison between, obviously, the mayor and council and the youth city council. And I've asked Greg to serve on the tortoise habitat board. It's like the HCAC or something, but it's Betty was serving on that prior. So that doesn't take a motion. I just wanted you to know those 3 additional things have been done. So if you'll update the list, and I'll see what else I've missed, but I think that captures most things. I've asked, we've already asked the folks to add you to the list, Greg. I've asked that Brian be added to flood control, and I need to make sure that Jimmy's address gets fixed because he's not getting notified for that, so I'll follow up on that. And then let's see, the MPO or DTEC, the Transportation Committee, Michelle, I need to make sure that we've got you added to that, and then Jimmy's on that and I'm on that. So those are just a few of the clarifications I wanted to make. And there are a bunch of others that we need to update, we will start working on now that the state of the city is over, and then we'll bring those back to you, council. Shifting to the last item, and by the way, we have no need for a closed meeting tonight, council, so that's good. Any reports, though, that you would want? Sean, I'll start with you. Do you have any reports, items? Okay. Adam? Okay. Danielle?
Report that I own a cat. No, I don't.
Nothing this time, okay. Jimmy? We haven't really had many meetings this last week either. Michelle?
No, just all of you go sit in that chair in the mayor's office.
Yeah, if you would.
St. George Musical Theater needs new chairs, and the city, if we purchase them, they'll stay with the Opera House, but the chairs they have in there suck.
Do you like that chair in his office? Is it nice?
It's much more comfortable, and it folds up, so there'll be leg room for people to walk, and it won't be that color, but it'll be that chair. So
What Michelle's asked is that they give us a quote for the Opera House, because they're different widths slightly, just 2 sizes really, and so that will be coming. I've asked Adam to kind of put a plug figure in for now for the budget, so we'll get more information. SGMT would contribute some towards this if we would like them to, but they would be our seats, so I would, depending on how the quote comes back, we can see what we want to do there. council, but I would ask you to go sit in it. They can be ganged, in other words, hooked together, and they don't actually have to be bolted down. They're heavy enough. But go take a seat, see what you think, sometime before February 20th when we have our budget meeting. Anything else, Michelle?
Nope.
I'm
Brian?
good, thank you.
Gregory?
Nope.
Okay. If you're so inclined, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Michelle, second by Jimmy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.